Happy Sunday. Welcome to Say Prayer Ministries. My name is Benny Chris Onyibe, and it's good to be with you guys once again. So, quick flashback to how Leviticus ended. There, you saw how how the way his people lived his life was worship to him. So, building up from that, we are in Numbers today. So, guys, a lot happened in the book of Numbers. In the book of Numbers, you see laws being given and instructions being given to the Israelites, and you would also see them being instructed by God to arrange themselves in a particular manner to go to war and to do a lot of these things in order to take the promised land that he had, promised to them. So in the book of Numbers, there are a lot of numbers. You'd see like details of the numbers and the arrangements of the Israelites, of the people that God had instructed to go and fight these battles and these wars. In the book of Numbers, you also see Aaron finally dying. You see how the Israelites kept on complaining to the point where they lost their, they didn't lose the promise, but the people that started on the journey were not promised the end of the journey. Rather, it was their children that were promised the end of the journey. So because of their constant complaining and faithlessness, despite everything that God did to show them that he cared, you would see it was in them to just complain and to just be ungrateful. So you would see how their children were the ones that inherited it and how that got the land. And you would also see how an 11-day journey turned into 40 years, guys. Yes, you will see a lot. You will see the story of the 12 spies that were sent by Moses after the entire journey. They get to the point where it's we're at the brink of the promised land and it's the right time. However, they come back with the disposition of defeat, saying that they are like grasshoppers compared to the people and the army of people presently living in the land. So it was a discouraged disposition, and it's when you consistently see the hand of God back to back to back to back in the course of so many years, and yet the testimonies were so real, and you see that, and yet they still came back saying, yeah, we can't get that. So it's the promised land that you have been struggling for, you're saying, no, sorry, the battle is too much, that would require a little too much effort. Doesn't that sound like what some of us do these days? God would show us testimony after testimony, give us testimony after testimony, miracle after miracle, and then finally we get to the point where it's we are at a point where it will lead us to something huge, and an opposition comes along and we nah, it's not going to happen. We lose faith in the one who has been proving himself back to back. So you see how this really upset God. You see how faith in God is extremely important, because lack of faith in God showed lack of trust in him. Lack of faith in God showed lack of trust in what he has proven to you that he can do time and time again. Lack of faith in God showed lack of belief in his promises and in his word and in his capacity, and that really upset God. So you really see how God really responded towards faithlessness in this part of the Bible, even towards Aaron and Moses, and how their faithlessness also caused them to miss out on the promised land at a point. So you see how instruction after instruction and obedience after obedience led to progress in getting to the promised land. So this also applies to the present day, where it's it is so important to obey God's instructions, because that will take you to the next step in your walk with him. As the servant of God, you would see how Moses was being defended by God, back to back. When people would try to question his authority, question his standing with God, because God had chosen him, God defended him. You would also see how, in chapter 11, the children of Israel were complaining that the monotony of the manna was getting frustrated, and they were tired. And in Egypt, they ate a lot more variation of meals. They were actually eating meat, like they were just complaining, guys. When you're free, read these chapters. Like, you would see how they kept on complaining, and you would see God's response to them. Chapter 11 verse 1, chapter 11 verse 4 to 6, chapter 14 verse 1 to 4, chapter 21 verse 5. Like, these are like times and seasons where they would continually complain, and you would see God's response to like their complaints in chapter 11 verse 20, chapter 14 verse 11, chapter 14 verse 20 to 24. Like, God responded with so much grace, but you could tell like he was hurt, because he's like, how do you not believe? How do you not have faith in my word and in my promise? How do you not trust me? I'm not even like, God is not even expecting blind faith, right? He has shown them and given them reasons to believe you, and you're still not trusting, still not believing. In your speech, you're breathing complaints and ungratefulness. That was what was upsetting God in this Bible. And I feel like the reason this has had to be like the core topic of this Numbers is because the biggest thing, which I feel like is one of the biggest things that happened that was not supposed to happen, was number one, the Israelites from having an 11-day journey extended to a 40-year journey because of faithlessness. Aaron and Moses, who had been leading and who had been following God and trusting him and following instructions, just because of a moment of faithlessness, they also lost out on the promised land. God still brought his promise to pass. The children of Israel still got to the promised land, but just not the people that went through the stress of leaving Egypt. And that is why it's just sad. But you see people like Joshua and Caleb, who from a moment of expressing trust in the power of God, were the ones that led the children of Israel into the promised land. I also love the fact that Moses was the one that ordained, like God instructed that it was Joshua that was meant to be the next leader, and Moses ordained him without jealousy, with a clean heart. It must have been painful, I believe, but he did it with peace. Like, he just did it. So in chapter 11 verse 1, so sorry for deviating, but in chapter 11 verse 1, you see how the children of Israel complained so much about the monotony of manna that God got so upset that his response to this was in chapter 18. Tell the people, purify yourselves in readiness for tomorrow, and you will eat meat because you cried before the Lord, who will feed us meat. We really had it good in Egypt. The Lord will give you meat, and you will eat. You will eat not for 1 day, or 2 days, or 5 days, or 10 days, or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes nauseating to you, because you have rejected the Lord who is among you and cried to him, why did we ever leave Egypt? Guys, you need to understand, like, God got to the point where he's like, how is it that I'm doing something beautiful for you, and you're freeing you from slavery, and you're complaining that you should have left us there? How? Not just freeing you from slavery, but like leading you, not leaving you alone. How do you not go back and say, why didn't you just leave us to suffer? Like, you can, even for a natural man, that can be upsetting. How much more God, who was just pouring out love on them? Guys, they complained, like, and it was one thing for them to like just be complaining like internally. They were like being very, very vocal about their ungratefulness. Like in chapter 11 verse 1, you see, now the people began complaining openly before the Lord about the hardship. So that whole disposition towards God's goodness was what hurt him, not even the fact that they wanted more. I believe that if they had asked more with a heart of thanksgiving and trust in the power of God and in who has been leading them to this point, it would have been a different thing entirely. There's a story of this guy called Balaam, and how this other guy called Balak saw how God was helping the Israelites win all these battles, and Balak is like going to meet Balaam because Balaam was like really high up there in like power and stuff. So it's like he sent someone to meet Balaam and tell him, oh, please curse the Israelites and all of that. And Balaam is like, I'm not going to curse anyone who God has not told me to curse. And God consistently tells Balak through Balaam that Israelites are blessed. So nothing could stop the Israelites from being blessed. Nothing could stop the promise of God from coming to pass. But their faithlessness affected them, not God. Because God was still powerful whether or not they believed. Do you get? Guys, even in the book of Numbers, there was a prophecy of Jesus to come. This was when Balaam came and was talking to Balak and telling him how no, the Israelites are blessed by God and he cannot curse who God has blessed. And in chapter 24 verse 17, you see when Balaam began prophesying, and he says, I see him but not now, I perceive him but not near. A star will come from Jacob and his scepter will rise from Israel. He will smash the forehead of Moab and strike down all the Shehotites. So this was a prophecy of Jesus, that someone is coming from the line of Jacob and he's going to come and defeat evil, basically. So like I believe like the Old Testament just contains, like every book of the Old Testament contains types and shadows of what was to come. So Numbers ended with chapter 36 verse 13, and here you see that on the threshold of the promised land, the following instructions and obeying God led them to the point where they were geographically and spiritually positioned. Geographically positioned because they had won all the wars and had gotten to that point where they were at the right place, and spiritually positioned because they had obeyed the laws and the instructions given by God, and they had, you know, been cleansed through all them sacrifices and all. So they were now spiritually and geographically at the right position to take hold of the promised land. And that is how Numbers ended. Such a beautiful journey, guys, that the book of Numbers took us through, and I'm so excited to go to the next book of the Bible. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned a lot. Next week is Deuteronomy. That's next week Sunday. Anticipate. Kindly share this video and subscribe to this channel. Any question you need to ask that you are not completely sure of, please leave in the comment section below. Anything you do not understand, and we'll be sure to clarify. We love you, and God loves you more. Have a lovely week. Bye.